Time. I know our guys are excited. Had a great meeting this morning. We're actually practicing in the evening. Five of our first eight practices are in the evening, since four of our first six games are in the evening. So we're kind of balancing that out between home and evening. I also realize we don't have a bye week till bye week 9, so I'm doing a lot of different things to get to that point through our first 3 weeks of fall camp here before classes start, and then obviously we'll get 2 full weeks of game prep once we start school, which changes the rules because then we change to a different set of NCAA rules allowing 20 hours per week and everything. So with the start of fall camp, we're actually pretty healthy. We have three guys that will be not out at practice tonight. Matt Bailey, first off, has got a checkup here literally in a couple days. If that gets all cleared, then we'll see where he can go, but expect him to be back a couple weeks out, 2 to 3 weeks out back from our opener. Jared Beatty, unfortunately, is just got a soft tissue issue that he's dealt with in the past, and he's starting limited. Won't be out there today, but expect him back sooner or later. And then Des Schuster has reported it and is fully able to go. Anything from a compliance standpoint and all that goes into it. It's just there's some follow-up things he has to do to be fully able to participate in our practices, and that's just strictly a physical thing that we're waiting on and trying to get some clarity. So have more on that as we go forward. But other than that, we should be good to go.
Getting ready to start year three. Just for some thoughts on the improvement in the program here going into the third year.
Yeah, I think one of the things as a head coach you're always guarded against is just outside expectations and optimism. It's good to have it. I pointed out obviously that my first year I used to put on the beginning and end of every meeting 14-14, where the media had picked us to finish 14-14 that first year, and obviously the math has changed a little bit, but I've always told those guys, listen, not one tackle, not one touchdown, not 1 yard gain or loss carries from last year to this year. So it's about the 12 guaranteed opportunities we have in front of us this year, and I think our guys are excited about it. I know there's a lot of outside expectations, but I tell the guys the expectation in this room is what matters, and for me as a head coach, I hope their expectations are even higher than mine.
But just for clarity, Matt, is that the same thing he was dealing with in the spring?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I guess how much does that spring, like what you guys were able to accomplish in terms of positioning in the defensive backfield, how much can carry over into the fall, knowing you have new faces?
Yeah, that's a good thing. We actually did add a number of new guys, a couple safeties, a couple corners that we haven't seen at all. Literally, I mean, we've been able to work out with them mildly during this summer, but the NCAA rules don't allow certain things to happen. So tonight will be the first time we've been with them on the grass in a football capacity standpoint. So I'm very excited for that because I think their skill set, as well as some of the incoming freshmen, very excited to get our hands on a couple high school players too that we think may have the ability. We look at Matt Bailey, right? He's a guy that was literally one of our last offers in his class, and ended up being one of the major contributors. Him and obviously Xavier ended up being the two biggest contributors out of his class on the back end. So excited to see some of these freshmen as well.
And was it always your intention to add a few more defensive backs, or did you maybe come to that after spring ball?
No, I think when we had the conclusion of the season, obviously we lost a lot of really good players in that back end. What was awesome byproduct of that is we really had a great look at our players during the bowl game preparation. Obviously, when a couple guys didn't play, that opened up the window there. So you saw that was kind of not change my math, but maybe think about where we were at and what we need to do. And then that first wave of true portals and transfers and all that goes in January. And then I think after spring ball, we took an assessment of, okay, what do we have? Where do we think we need? And then the door opened up for a couple guys, Hill and Bush, as well as a couple other guys that we were able to get in the program. And I think we're always trying to acquire players, but I do think we use the portal kind of as a way to supplement areas we might have concerns at. I don't think you take a guy in the portal as your desire to make him a day one starter. Sometimes it happens, but that's more of a byproduct.
With the night game thing, tell me how you come to that decision. Is it purely get their bodies ready, get their minds ready to be playing at night? Is it more like, all day kind of thing, the preparation of what they need to go through for those game days? How do you go through
The biggest one is easy to identify. It's just a different game catching the ball under lights, right? So not just for receivers, but big time with the kick returners, punt returners. Just can't be simulated. We did hit a heavy stretch of high heat there for a little bit. So I think these first three practices, we're going to go Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We limit the area we're in down in the red area. In addition to that, I knew practicing at night would be cooler than it is during the day. So that's really the two key ingredients as far as the night games when they're scheduled, we really have no control over that. But I do know that we talk to our players a lot about how they approach the idea of a night game versus a day game. So the biggest thing we're going to do is our two scrimmages, where by NCAA rules we're allotted true two full. We're going to do three things. They're going to be at night. We'll do our pregame meal 4 hours out before the game, like we do for all games, right? So if we play at 7 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 11 o'clock, there's always a pregame meal 4 hours out. And the other thing, because we have new uniforms, we'll actually put our players in their game day uniforms for those two scrimmages. The first scrimmage will have offense probably in the home and defense in away, and then we'll flip it for the second one and make as real a game day situation as we can on the lights.
And do you have a preference, like a personal preference, like on a Saturday to be playing at 11 a.m. or to be playing at 7 p.m.? Does it matter to you?
No, as a head coach, I used to really I believe my first year we went 12-1. I believe all 13 games were at 11 o'clock. And the only benefit to that is you truly just are done for the day. Like, I'd rather just get up and get going, but I know a lot of our kids love playing at night. I think a lot of fans like playing the night games. I think when I got into coaching, everybody used to love the 1 o'clock game. Those don't even exist anymore, right? So it's a little bit of just, hey, tell me what we got to play, when we got to do it. I really, in my 15th year as a head coach, I don't think it affects the players very much as I used to. We practice in the morning sometimes. I used to get concerned. The reason one of the hesitations I didn't go to practice in the morning, because that's by far the best time to practice, was I used to think it would affect our players, but I think they can roll anytime now.
The depth chart wise, how much did you get figured out in the spring, and how much of that carries over here in the fall camp?
Well, there's a lot a carryover for sure. When we got done with spring ball, we sat down as a staff, said, hey, what do we think? Not only in your position room, so all the coaches, hey, this is where I'm at. I think these 5 guys are going to contribute these 3 roles, or however you will lay it out. Take for instance, everybody always wants to know how you're going to replace Chase Brown. Well, you don't replace Chase Brown, but you replace Chase Brown productivity, right? And who's going to do that? We have 2 players with veteran experience with Reggie and Josh, and then we have a trio of 3 freshmen that we feel are going to replace those numbers. So that's one aspect. I think the other thing defensively is, okay, in our room now, where do we have strengths? We have a really strong outside linebacker room. We have obviously a very solid group of defensive linemen. On the offense side of the ball, we have a pair of guard and tackle that I feel might be one of the better tandem of guys I've had in my career. I have a first-time starter at center, whatever, and then the direction that goes. Josh had a great summer, so it's just kind of an inventory of everything, and then affects how we enter fall camp. But by no means are we solidified to anything. I think these first 8 practices, there's a lot of finding out where we're at.
Go ahead, Bob.
If the polls come out, top 25s come out next week, do you care at all if you're in there or not in there? Can you work both ways?
There's an outside factor there, right? In this building, I don't think they're really going to care one way or the other.
Right.
I think there's a certain pride, right, that you have to it. But I do recognize in recruiting, right, you're going to write an article like, this team's ranked, this team's not ranked, or they've been ranked X number of weeks in a row. We're into those conversations, but I do think that myself to our team, to the way we play, we're better when we're the underdog. So each week, I think we always go into how do we match up this week and what's being said.
Do you have clarity on when you might get a timeline for Dez's future?
No, I know he's actually literally going through some assessments today. So I don't think it's going to be anything quick, and all we do is just continue to be with him and support him and see where things go.
Thanks for Josh, Cruz. After seeing him in the spring, how comfortable do you feel giving you kind of the bigger opportunity in this center position than maybe?
Well, Josh has been impressive, since I got here, and Josh was one of those players that had signed before I ever came here, so I didn't have the pleasure of recruiting him or being around his family. Obviously, his dad is a very well-established person and all that goes into it, but to recruit his little brother and then now to have them both here, Josh has been a guy, in my opinion, that's taken advantage of every opportunity. We played him as a true freshman, even though it's probably a little bit more than what he was prepared for, but we did it, and it is paying off dividends now. An incredible football IQ. I think when I listen to Julian Pearl, Isaiah Adams, Zy Chrysler, Jordan Slaughter, like those guys speak so highly of Josh's football IQ, his ability to communicate. He's a football guy, and it shows every day.
For Josh McCray, how did you see him navigate what was a really up and down season? I guess
Yeah,
what have you seen from him since?
And what I felt, and I tried to really help Josh through the moment of it was a lot of things that were out of his control, right? Like you can't handle what happened to his first injury, and then you can't control what happened to the first injury, and his second injury was a right on the heels of just coming back in from his first one. And it's a lot of times that double punch that get kids in a funk. And I give Josh a lot of credit. Worked really hard on his physical approach, his demeanor. I think since the arrival of Thad Ward, like Josh has had a really, I think a tremendous spike in football. Just everything that he does. I've been very impressed with the relationship that Thad's built in that room with every player. But I think for Josh especially, it's been pretty good and rewarding. So I'm excited to see where he comes into fall camp. He's healthy. He looks good. Reggie does too. The 3 freshmen. We got 5 guys in that room that are all kind of little different body types. Overall, it's a pretty big room, but also, Aiden Lawfrey, presents a unique opportunity there for us. And Reggie's kind of a blend. I would say Josh is too. Obviously, Jordan and Caden are big boys that play games with big pads on, and I'm excited to see them grow.
At the quarterback position, is there an ideal timeline when you say, this is the guy we're going to run out there against Toledo and start game planning for that?
Yeah, I think you guys probably have followed me for a couple of years. Like, I do think that, 2 weeks out from the game, it's important for anybody and everybody in our building, right? Like, you guys will be a byproduct of it, but like, I think it's important for our building to know who's the one quarterback. So you work with 1 wide receivers, work with 1 tight ends, and 1 snapper, and that kind of scenario. But up until then, I think we had some really good growth in the spring. I think we have about 4 guys that really have made tremendous growth. Obviously, Cal Swanson, the incoming freshman, did some nice things. But between Luke, between John, between Donovan, between Michelle, like those 4 guys really got better, and I'm excited to see them tonight.
Are the first few days of camp just fairly standard year to year, or do you tailor things, tweak things for the group?
The actual practice?
Yeah, just what you do.
I told them today in a meeting this morning, right? Like, this is my 15th year, and I promise you guys that there are so many guys in that room that have been around me at different stages of my life. Guys that were former players, guys that were former coaches, guys that have been with me, guys that have come back. And I've kind of shared with them over the last 2 weeks as we've met, like, this is a camp that I promise you have never seen before, right? Like, now, practice format there's a lot of carryover, but I can tell you right now from practice 1 through 8, right? We have more evening practice than we've ever had because we got a lot of night games on the front. So that's a first quick adjustment. But how we do, what we do, I think we got a lot of veteran players, so I kind of accelerated the process a little bit more than others, especially with the 1s, the guys that we feel can handle it, 1s and 2s. I've worked in a lot more Devo because I think we got some young players that I want to see what they can do. And then in addition to that, I have 5 of my 10 coaches that are in new roles. Obviously, Aaron Henry's here, but he's in a new role as a coordinator, and I have 4 new coaches doing new things. So I really want to make sure that I'm on the same page with what they're saying, what they're doing, and what their players are seeing and hearing. So there's a lot of detail to this camp, and I'm excited to watch.
The sports betting stories that have come out of like Iowa and Iowa State, it's a brave new world with kids being able to bet from their phones and things like that. What safeguards do you have in place for such like that? I know you've spoken to it before.
Yeah,
but it's in the news today.
No, it's obviously just the I always tell our players, let's pay attention to college football, right? And there's 2 main storylines out there, that world and obviously the situation in Northwestern. So I think it brings awareness into our building, which is a good thing. We constantly educate our players of where it is. I think the part that I've really benefited on, sometimes I don't even realize when you're in these moments. I came to work for a AD who's a lawyer, right? And like that element of compliance and all that has always been a premium. But from what I've gathered, some of this stuff was high school behavior that found its way, creeped its way into college and everything else. We've made a lot of conscientious efforts to say even before any of that hit, but it's a great reminder for everybody to kind of get into it. We addressed it when it came out. We'll address it in meetings. I know when we come back as student athletes in the fall, the university has a whole agenda to put in front of them. It's a great reminder for everybody affiliated. Some of this stuff sounds like coming out and reading between the lines. It's not just with student athletes, but it's by support staff and student athletes around the program. So, I literally met yesterday with every student athlete trainer, equipment manager, and nutritionist, any of the student athletes that touch our players, because obviously there's interaction there, and that's the stuff that you worry about.
Is Jim Leonard in the building?
Jimmy is in the building. Yes.
What's been the reaction of the coaches and the players to have him physically here?
Well, Jimmy had visited us a little bit last spring, not in the same role he's in now, but he and I have had a long-standing relationship. So I literally kind of said to the staff last spring when he came in for a day or two, he was here at Pro Day. I don't know if you guys, anybody picked up on it. Jimmy could slide the hat on and kind of go under the radar, literally. I think the coaches, he had a lot of conversations with me, with Aaron. Aaron and him had known each other a long time. Antonio Finel's worked with him when he was at Wisconsin. J-Mo knew him. Andy knew him. Charlie Bolin obviously knew who he was. On the offense side of the ball, Barry and Lundy and him have really struck up a good relationship. Barry's been, it's been fun to watch Barry's reactions. I know Jimmy, I know Barry, and I knew there'd be a great commonplace there. Also, like Ben Miller, is in our building as an analyst. Obviously, I hired Robbie Dish as our special teams guy. Jim had a really good career as a defensive player, but he's also a really good return guy and really played valuable roles in special teams. So Jim's going to touch our program in a lot of ways. I'm excited to have. Anytime you're going to bring a good football mind in his building is a good thing. He won't be with us on games, home or away, but he'll kind of be ahead of the game like an analyst, and he'll touch literally all three phases of the game: offense, defense, special teams. I'm sure some people will find their way to his office, but he can't be on the field, can't really be involved in off-campus recruiting, but really excited to have him in the building.